Thanks everyone for joining. Really appreciate it. And I hope you had a great conference. If you can't tell, I'm also pretty exhausted. So I appreciate you all giving the time and coming. But yeah, I'm just going to share about my experiences and ask you a bunch of questions. I'd love for it to be an interactive session. Happy to answer any questions as well. About me, my name is Kunal. I work as a DevRel manager here at Civo. So I have this staff shirt on. And yeah, been involved in communities since I can remember. CNCF ambassador, GitHub stuff. I don't even remember anymore. But all ties into open source. Been involved in open source community a lot. Do content creation, love teaching, and yeah, love working at Civo as well. So the CNCF ecosystem, we'll talk about that. A little bit about this session. I'm going to share about what do I look for when someone asks me which tool to pick in this domain, like monitoring solution, for example, or cost monitoring. There are so many. If you go to KubeCon, you'll find like at least 6 booths doing cost monitoring. So you have to ask yourself, how do I pick the right one? Then there are so many challenges and things to keep in mind, like future-proofing, vendor lock-in. We all know what now is going on with Terraform and stuff. So yeah, happy to talk about that. But yeah, the CNCF ecosystem, if you don't know, Cloud Native Computing Foundation, which is a non-profit organization established in 2015 under the Linux Foundation, and it is dedicated towards advancing cloud native technologies. The mission is to promote the widespread adoption of open source cloud native technologies, and it provides a vendor neutral platform for various essential open source projects. Kubernetes being the most popular one, and there's monitoring tools like Prometheus, then there's Envoy, so on and so forth. So the key feature for CNCF is like, why do you need a foundation? They have projects in like various stages, like the incubation and the staging and all sorts of things, and it helps promoting and facilitate the adoption of these projects as well. So if you're using a CNCF project, for example, or other organizations like you may have heard of Apache, then you know that, okay, the people are not going to change their licenses in the middle, So if you're using a open source software by like a proprietary company, they can change their license anytime, like MongoDB did, now Terraform did. But if a project is under the CNCF, or like the Apache Software Foundation, some others, then they are not required, like they're not allowed to change their licenses. That is why most of the, all the big companies and stuff, they try to push their projects to CNCF because there's the credibility and it helps in adoption and community building and stuff. It also offers some other stuff like certifications around these projects and supporting end users, facilitating adoption and expanding its ecosystem. So yeah, pretty cool stuff. All the projects, what does it look like? This is what it looks like. It's very overwhelming. I get this question quite a lot. How do you navigate this thing? These are all individual projects. I don't think the resolution is strong enough. I don't think this lists all the projects. If you check the CNCF landscape, I think it's landscape.cncf.io, then you will see like a lot of projects if I show you. Landscape.cncf. Oh, that's the one. So it's interactive. You can see it's huge. See, so many projects, and these are also individual, like dots you can see. You scroll down. Yeah. So a lot of projects. So the landscape here, it's like a visual representation and categorization of various open source tools under the CNCF and the whole cloud native ecosystem. And it's pretty evolving. Every year we see new projects get added in. We see old projects, sometimes projects get removed. Projects are in various stages. Like they first start off and then they are like graduated projects and later on, so on and so forth. So many categories you can see here, like observability, networking, like storage, security, serverless, end user applications. So yeah, these contents are pretty dynamic. It's subject to change as new projects emerge. and existing ones advanced, like further stages. So it's like ever evolving. But now the question is, how do you navigate this landscape? Let's say I'm an organization and I want to take the cloud native approach. So what do I do? What are things to keep in mind, how to start? In one domain, there are so many projects, so which one to pick and stuff like that. Let's talk a bit about, let's say, briefly touching upon the benefits of cloud native technologies. What are some of the benefits? So many advantages, including the ability to like scale applications and services effectively if you're using Kubernetes, flexibility, agility in development and deployment, optimizing cost management, that's another one. You can use a pay-as-you-go approach model, ensuring resilience and high availability, that's another one. For organizations, there's also streamlined resource management with containerization and orchestration tools, like there's Kubernetes, and automating various DevOps practices via the cloud-native approach, enhancing security, achieving portability across various clouds. So let's say if you're using multiple cloud providers, resource allocation based on demand. So the list goes, on and on. So if you're using a microservice architecture, so facilitating that for modularity, promoting CI/CD best practices, pipelines for a faster software delivery, and just driving innovation via competitiveness. And so many advantages. So if we talk about your cloud native journey, so how do you get started? So before embarking on your journey, it's crucial to assess your organization's like specific needs and goals, understand what existing infrastructure you have, and what are the pain points and what are the business objectives. It's not for everyone. Kelsey made a tweet which was really nice. It was your users don't care what tech you are using. They just want to use the website. They don't really care. So determine whether your aim is to, let's say, improve scalability or reduce operational costs, enhance agility, or maybe any other strategic outcome. So this assessment is going to serve as a basic foundation for crafting a tailored cloud-native technology. So ideally, like answering the question, before you embark on your cloud-native journey, what do you need to do? You assess your organization's needs. Next one, choosing the right CNCF projects and tools. I'll talk a little bit more about it. But yeah, while having a clear understanding of your organization's requirements, you can select appropriate tools that align with your objectives. So factors play a role into it, like the project's maturity, how new the project is, how much experience the project has had. The one I look for the most is community support and compatibility with my existing tech stack. And so just ensure that the choices can address your immediate needs while also contributing to your long-term cloud-native needs. I like to look at the CNCF project as like the landscape as a dictionary. So it's not like I'll see what every project has to. It's like I have to know about every single thing, and then I'll pick the right tool. Instead, what I do is I just pick the one that does the job for me, and it's also long-term, future-proof. Right, so that's point number 2. Point number 3 is now building a cloud-native strategy around it. So developing a comprehensive cloud-native strategy that outlines the roadmap for adoption and implementation. So you define the timeline, your milestones, and the key performance indicators, which are the KPIs, to track the progress. And here you need to consider factors such as like training and skill development, security measures, and resource allocation, and all sorts of things. So once you have that strategy, it's a good way to move forward. Now, what are some of the best practices when we talk about CNCF adoption? I don't want to say it's in the list of priority, but for the first one, definitely, which is security. It's paramount when adopting CNCF technologies. The organizations have to follow some of the best practices for securing containers, orchestrators like Kubernetes, and like the entire cloud-native tech stack with rising number of attacks and everything. So yeah, just having, when you think about security in the cloud environment, first thing comes to mind is strong access controls. So ensuring like container image integrity as well, regularly patching and updating your software, and using security scanning tools. There's one in CNCF landscape, Cubescape, which is pretty nice that you can try out. It helps you identify vulnerabilities and stuff. So organizations, they should also consider identify the identity and access management tools, encryption and network segmentation to protect all your sensitive data. CI/CD, which is also a fundamental practice in cloud-native environments. We all know what CI/CD is? No? Okay, yeah.
That's a very quick question. What was the tool that you mentioned regarding security?
Cubescape. It's in the CNCF landscape.
Okay.
It's free to use, very good tool. Yeah, it's pretty nice. You connect your clusters or your images, and it will show you all the vulnerabilities in it. And how to fix the vulnerabilities, it will show you that as well. So, very nice project. But yeah, there are plenty of others out there that you can try out. But yeah, CI/CD enables automated testing. That's another. That's like the next. When we talk about adopting best practices for CNCF, for CI/CD specifically, best practices include pipelines that build, test, and deploy code automatically with like robust version control and automated testing suites. You can use infrastructure as code tools like there's Terraform, Pulumi, all sorts of things that can help manage these changes consistently. Next one is pretty obvious. When we talk about CNCF adoption, containers and orchestration. So typically managed by tools like Docker and Kubernetes. These are the core of the cloud-native computing technologies. Now, there are many best practices you have to follow for this as well. Using container registries, for example, for secured storage, employing the orchestration platforms for automated scaling, load balancing, resource management, effective cluster management, so on and so forth. Right, what's the next one? Anyone can guess? I've spoken about orchestration, CI/CD, and security. What else is left? Two more. Oh, networking is one. Sort of mentioned it, but there's one very important one. It's very popular.
Is it the plugins and
No.
community around it?
Observability.
Yes, monitoring, all observability and login. So yeah, there you go. That's another one. So folks, organizations should implement monitoring tools like in the landscape if I talk about there's Prometheus. You can use things like Grafana to collect metrics, set up alerts. And now with Civo, we have launched our logging services with other pillars of the observability coming soon. But yeah, you can use like these, for example, centralized login solutions. Elasticsearch is there, Kibana is there, all sorts of things. So yeah, that's another one. The lastly is compliance and governance. Now, complying with industry regulations and internal governance standards, it's also vital for organizations that are operating in cloud-native environments. Best practices include defining the compliance policies, ensuring data protection measures, and automating compliance checks. I work at Civo. We are a cloud provider, so everyone in our organization has to follow these sort of like guidelines. And Dinesh, our CTO, he sent us a bunch of stuff like take these courses, do these checks, all sorts of things. Because you have to establish like clear roles and responsibilities for how you manage your cloud-native resources. And then what we spoke about previously around security, the access control, access management as well. So yeah, these sort of like basically just ensures that the cloud-native environment aligns with the legal and the organizational requirements as well, while minimizing the risks and liabilities. Okay, so we had so many projects. We spoke about some of the best practices for CNCF adoption. Let's take a look at we talked about the CNCF landscape. So let's talk about how do you assess a project's viability, right? So we have so many CNCF projects. How do you evaluate whether a project is viable enough or not for us to pick it? And also there are many overlaps. So as you can see in one domain, there are many projects that do the same sort of a thing. So how do we select tools amidst this project overlap? And how do we maximize our approach? Let's see. So the first one is the project maturity. So you can evaluate the maturity of CNCF projects projects that have graduated or are, let's say, in the incubation stage tend to have a little bit more of a stable API and broader community support. I'm not pointing any fingers, but it's pretty obvious. Project has been in the ecosystem for a longer period of time, so they have been in the ecosystem for a longer period of time. The next one is the community activity. So it assesses the level of activity in the project's community, how active the community is, like how frequent the contributions are, releases, and discussions on the forums and mailing lists. And also the third one, when you're assessing a project, is end user adoption. So investigate whether the project is adopted by well-known organizations and whether it aligns with your industry or your use case or not. So right now we're looking at how to assess a project and differentiate it with your competitors. Now, the next one also is pretty obvious, project fit, if it aligns with your needs. So clearly define your organization's technical and business needs, and then choose the projects that directly address these needs rather than selecting the tools that are based on the hype. If you caught the keynote of Kelsey today, he was talking about the hype cycle. If you didn't, it's recorded. Highly recommend checking it out. But that's what I was talking about. Like when you look at a dictionary, you're looking at a dictionary and you're like, I need to know the definition of, I don't know what the meaning of, let's say, the word alignment is. So I'll go search for A, and then I'll search for L and stuff. So I'll search for it. Same thing with the projects. Rather than going with the hype, list down your business needs and technical needs, and then see which project fits into that category. That way you're narrowing down your search and not being overwhelmed by the whole CNCF ecosystem. Now, project overlaps. You're like, okay, Kunal, that's fine, but now I found 3 projects do the same thing. So when you talk about project overlaps, try to understand where projects overlap in functionality and purpose. So evaluate whether these overlaps are beneficial, for example, for redundancy or like failover, or detrimental, so for example, causing confusion. So sometimes the overlap is going to be like, okay, this is actually beneficial for me, and sometimes it's going to be like confusing. So see what type of overlap it is, and then evaluate the ecosystem. So consider the broader ecosystem around the overlapping projects. And sometimes projects work well together within a specific ecosystem. So that's another one. Right. The next one is resource efficiency. So for example, when you're picking up a project, you have your team, then you have to pick like, okay, I have my team, I have to train them. Do they know about this project? So skills and expertise, evaluate your team's skills and expertise, and choosing projects that align with your team's knowledge can lead to quicker adoption and effective resource utilization. Then there are also scalability and resource requirements. So consider the scalability and resource requirements of the selected projects. And well, obviously, if the projects fit within your budget and your infrastructure constraints, then yeah, those are the 2 things. And the next one is my favorite one. Anyone? What do you have to think about when you're picking an open source project?
Trade-offs.
No, not just trade-offs. It's more on the legal side. Yeah, vendor neutral stuff. So vendor lock-in. Be cautious of projects that might lock you into a specific vendor's projects or services. So choose projects that promote vendor neutrality and open standards. Pretty self-explanatory. I don't think I have to go on about that. But anyway. Security compliance, that's another one. So assess the security features and track record of the projects. You can oftentimes find like various case studies and where the projects are being used. I mentioned how many end users are using it. So prioritize security when you're picking a project, especially when you're handling sensitive data. And it's also compliance, so ensure that the selected projects comply with the industry regulations and the internal compliance requirements. If it's in the landscape, it probably does that because the process is pretty rigorous. There are like 3 stages so to get into a CNCF landscape, and the community has to vote and everything. And that's why there's the trust within the CNCF organization. Testing, I think that's one. I just say conduct the POCs. proof of concept, if you don't know that. Before like fully committing to a project, conduct like small scale POCs to evaluate how well the project meets your needs and interacts with your existing infrastructure. So before like going all in it, like, okay, this is very cool, everyone is using it, it's very nice, I'll use it, I'll just go all in. No, don't do that. Before fully committing, test it and draft a POC. The next one is also pretty important, community engagement. So participate in the community. One of the best ways to learn about a project is get involved in the community. Most of the projects we use, like we have Kubernetes there, KubeVirt is there, Kubeflow is there. We just launched Kubeflow as a service. So as Civo here, we also encourage our employees to like contribute some of their time to these open source projects. So one of the best ways to get to know about the project you're planning to implement is community engagement, actively engaging in the project's community. So attend meetings, ask questions, and contribute if possible to establish a connection and gain various insights. Right, because not every time you don't really see what they're trying to show you. You get to see stuff when you're actually involved in the community as well. Right. So that's about that, but there's one more thing, long-term viability, roadmap. So these projects also have their roadmaps. So see what the project's roadmap is to understand where the project is headed, its future direction, and whether that aligns with your long-term goals or not. And always have a backup plan, or contingency strategies in case the chosen project does not meet the expectations, or let's say in the future becomes unsupported. Very rarely it happens, but it happens. But you'll know, I know Kubernetes is not like for a few years, it's not going to be unsupported. Don't quote me on it after a few years. Like for example, K3S. I think K3S might there's some things are changing. But I always have a backup plan. So at Civo here, we have K3S clusters, but we also have Talos clusters now. Talos is pretty secured. If anyone has used Talos, it's pretty cool. Try it out. It's an OS for Kubernetes, if you will. Right. Next popular thing, it's also pretty popular, docs and support. So quality of the documentation and the availability of support resources. Well-documented projects with like a strong community support, they are often very easy, not very easy, but easier to integrate and maintain as compared to ones that do not. If you are picking a project and you see that there's no community support, there's no documentation, I don't have to tell you that. You yourself wouldn't get involved in such things. You would look for better projects. And then lastly, just feedback loop. So establish that feedback loop within your organization to continuously evaluate and the effectiveness and the efficiency of the selected projects. And always be prepared to make the changes and adjustments if needed. Right. One other popular question is how do we, so this is all good, but now you may be wondering, the landscape keeps changing and things keep evolving. Every year new projects are coming. So how do you stay, how to stay current with the rapidly evolving projects? So, there are so many, whenever we pick a project, some sort of a risk always involved with like tool deprecation and, you oftentimes have to also navigate the, pun intended, migrations between tools while balancing the, let's say, the open source part and the proprietary part. So yeah, there's a bunch of ways by which you can do it. Stay informed. I think that's the best one. If you don't know about a new project that is in town, then you're out of news. You're not aware. So that's why I've put this slide on the very first. If let's say there's a new monitoring project in town or new, now people are doing there's so many things. I saw one. So dev cycle, for example. You do feature flags, and then there's launch Starkly does feature flags. So people who may not be researching, they'll be like, oh, launch Starkly does it, but there are other companies, other projects who are doing it. I saw a stand in downstairs, open source alternative to MongoDB. So if you don't know about these things, that's why I put this stuff here first. How to do this? Subscribe to newsletters, mailing list, official social media channels to get the updates on like project releases, news, and events. Go to events, and that's another good one. But ideally, just regularly monitor the CNCF project landscape to see what all new tools are there. All the conversations happen on the CNCF GitHub, so it's all out in public. Nothing is like closed. But yeah, that's the way I do it. I'm subscribed to a lot of newsletters. Community engagement, actively participate in the project communities by attending meetings, webinars, and conferences. Because when you're engaging with the community, it helps you stay informed about the developments of the projects and best practices. If there's a project you're using and you're involved in the community, and months have gone by, the project has not done anything, you know something is coming. Bigger projects that are active projects, they're always actively under development. So yeah, and you can also contribute. So contribute to open source. Is Eddie still here? Yeah.
Yes. Contribute to open source, yes.
So contribute to open source. You can do a bunch of stuff. I personally don't get time anymore. So I contribute in other ways by, let's say, I provide feedback. It's a good way to contribute. Submit bug reports. You can also contribute code, documentation, do all sorts of things. So this involvement that you get fosters a deeper understanding of the projects and their evolution. And if something you feel like, something is wrong, you'll know because you're actively involved in the community. So speaking of things going wrong, establish a risk mitigation plan that includes like monitoring the health of your chosen tools. And this plan should basically outline some of the steps to take in case the tool that you rely on becomes deprecated or unsupported. But so identify, or alternative like, to these like CNCF projects or like proprietary solutions that can serve as replacements if needed. Right. Also, evaluating tool longevity. So before adopting a CNCF project, assess what its long-term viability is by considering factors like, you tell me, what factors can you consider for a tool to determine its longevity? Longevity? What is longevity? Longevity. What factors to consider to see if the project is going to be like, okay, good for long-term use?
Team behind it, funding.
Yeah, community activity, yeah.
Do they have a plan for the future?
Yeah.
Probably adoption. At the end of the day, if there's enough people adopted, it tends to get picked up by someone else to maintain it if someone else doesn't do it.
And for CNCF specific projects, can anyone share maybe for just CNCF projects?
Like Kubernetes, for example?
Yeah, how do you know Kubernetes? Pretty straightforward question, yeah.
I mean, it's widely adopted today,
Yeah.
but there's going to be continual improvements because through usage, people have noticed, hey, it's missing this, it's missing that. We want to make it a complete platform. Well, we're going to have other people contribute as well because we're probably reaching the end of the line in terms of what our existing team can do. And we have to seek outside innovation too through those integrations that we see. So for example, Kubescape and Kubernetes together is a powerful combination because you can't expect Kubernetes to do it all. So you have to provide some extendability for extensibility.
That's a great point. Like in that category or in the ecosystem, projects that if you pick 5 projects that work together really well, then I think sometimes some of the limitations, it's much better than let's say 5 different projects, very hard to work with it together. But anyway, yeah, Nikita.
I don't know much Kubernetes, but if I was looking into longevity of the tool, I would look at the community first of all, and I will look at 2 things. First of all, how big and healthy it is, and second, the diversity. Diversity both from point of view of individuals and companies, and then geographical diversity. Because what I want to happen, I want this community to evolve. So if new challenge happen, I don't want it to become a new product which is not covered by Kubernetes, and then I will have a locked-in community which is healthy but it's small and it's not involved. Instead, I want this new idea to become part of Kubernetes or like second community appear and they're two connected. So I won't have to move to another product in 5 years time from now.
Yeah.
That's my idea. And some companies do that actually.
No, so what we learned is, first one is community activity, because that tells you a lot. And then for CNCF specific projects, I'd say look at the project maturity and if it aligns with the CNCF goals. So for example, I would always be cautious when adopting projects that are marked as like incubating, for example, or have like limited community support. But unless they meet like your short-term goal, then it's okay. But projects that just started out, not that like good with community support and just in incubating stage, I'd say give it time, is what I would recommend.
I think a great way for tool is have a good longevity is that it's a dependency for other tools.
Hmm.
So when a tool, some
Hmm.
other tools depend on other tool, that tool becomes, like Kubernetes, for example, becomes like, it's a dependency for other tool, even if it's a
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And that's why the community activity will tell you most of the things you need to know. Anyone knows about OpenTF? OpenTF, anyone knows? Marino knows? OpenTF, what they did was, so Terraform changed their license. So the group of people, they forked the Terraform repository in their own account, and they have the Open Terraform project now. Because Terraform changed their licenses, so they forked it, and now they are maintaining it as a community. Like HashiCorp doesn't want to do open source stuff or whatever, that's okay, we will do it. But now the thing is, I don't know, I don't have any, I'm neutral because we will know whether this is a success or not, 5 years from now. 1 year, it will be good. For the next 1 year, it will be very popular, people contributing. But the question is, who is maintaining after 5 years? So, and that's, I asked Kelsey as well. He said, for the next 1 year, yeah, very popular, all the hype, but who's maintaining after 5 years and stuff. So that community involvement will tell you all you need to know. But yeah, why not? I'm excited. Right, also embrace standardization. So prioritize tools and technologies that adhere to open standards, and they are less likely to become obsolete. I believe all the projects in CNCF follows this. So yeah, CNCF projects they often follow these standards. So always be, sometimes if you're picking a proprietary software, then that may not be as, adaptable to changing requirements. So yeah. Also, regularly review your tooling stack. So conduct periodic reviews of your tooling stack to assess the alignment with your evolving needs. So you're using a project right now, but then let's say your needs evolve. So see how that tools plays into picture. So we're talking about future-proof right now. So it basically ensures that you're not stuck with redundant tools and you're not using outdated tools and stuff. The approach I like to use the approach that I like to consider is a use it or lose it approach. So where tools that no longer provide significant value, bye-bye. I would not use it. It's just phased out. So use it or lose it. Edit tweet that. Okay. Implement CI/CD. So CI/CD pipelines, automate deployment of your application, your infrastructure. Mentioning it again and again is pretty crucial. Because when we're talking about using new tools, different tools, replacing tools, CI/CD allows you to update and replace tools more seamlessly as you have new solutions that are emerging. And it spoke about testing before, so it also helps you in testing and validating these tool migrations before you deploy it to production. But cloud, yeah. So yeah, then another one, vendor neutral strategies. So when using proprietary tools, aim for vendor neutral configurations whenever possible. Avoid stuff that is tightly coupled your infrastructure to a specific vendor tech stack. Like Francisco mentioned, many tools may, let's say, depend on other tools. So utilize, I'd say, open APIs that adhere to some of the best practices to maintain the flexibility and minimize vendor lock-in. With new tools emerging and everything, emphasize training and skill development for your team so that can ensure that they can adopt to new tools and technologies effectively. So yeah, cross-train team members. So they have expertise in multiple tools so that you can reduce the impact of tool deprecation. Right. Next one is a hot topic right now, licensing and costs. So be aware of the licensing model and the costs that are associated with both the open source and the proprietary tools. And then consider how licensing change can affect your budget and operations. So like when MongoDB changed their licenses, I don't know if I'm framing it correctly, but when you used it, you had to pay. You couldn't use it for free anymore. So yeah, that was a while ago, but still I still remember that. But anyway, licensing costs, we talked about most of the things, give you a roadmap and things to consider, future-proofing. Spoke about CNCF a lot, and I hope now the landscape would be less overwhelming. Because when you look at a dictionary has thousands, 100,000 of words. It doesn't look overwhelming because I know where to look. I go to the letter and then I find it. Same approach with the CNCF landscape. Resources, CNCF.io has everything. Events, well, Civo Navigate, we are new, but we are doing good work. And the talks have been really nice. The KubeCon, Cloud Native Con, highly recommend that as well, one of my favorite conferences. And we will be there in Chicago as well. So see you in Chicago. Linux Foundation events you can go to. But yeah, that was it.
Thank you.
Thank you.